Hello, I'm Larry Johnson. Welcome to CounterCurrents. This episode, post-summit analysis. And here to break it down with me is Pepe Escobar, and none better. I hope you enjoy it. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe button. We're going to move towards 100,000, I hope. Thanks for watching. Lights, camera, action. It's Pepe Escobar.
I love it, Larry.
Oh man!
but I don't have a shirt.
Yeah, we got to get you a shirt. I mean, Nima's doing it. Danny Davis has done it. I started a trend. It's becoming a thing.
You started a trend, and like I told you, I will have to go back to that shop in Memphis where they make the most outstanding rock and roll shirts on the planet. I hope they're still there.
This gets us off topic, but Memphis on that main street, there's a hamburger joint. It's famous. I forget the name of it, but
I remember.
They deep fry the hamburgers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember, but I forgot the name. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing. Dyer's. It's called Dyer's.
Dyer's. Okay. Wow, I haven't heard this name in a decade.
Yeah. What a cheeseburger. Okay. So we'll get off of our nutritional food tips. Let's go with the big
best burgers in. We should do a best burgers in America podcast one day.
Yeah, or best burgers around the world.
Or best burgers around the world. Yeah. You bet.
You're more than qualified to comment on that.
Oh man, I can come up with burgers in Ho Chi Minh, Laos, you name it.
So we had this summit yesterday. So let's start at the 10,000, 50,000 foot view. What's your thought? And then we'll break it down from there.
We were not expecting it to be successful, right, Larry? From the beginning.
Yeah.
For instance, the bets were, okay, if they managed to talk more than an hour, it's already a victory. When it went after the second hour, wow. So 150 minutes, it's not bad at all. And very, very important, with Lavrov in the room. We don't know, of course, but I'm sure Lavrov was essential in the dialogue. For instance, to provide the background of everything in Ukraine, before the SMO, before Maidan, starting in 1991, nobody can do it better than Lavrov. And did you notice, Larry, that when Trump was on stage, the only person he actually pointed to was Lavrov in the front row, exactly. And so, so Lavrov was influential. And, well, it was dream team against rookies, no? Even five with five and then 3 with 3. Wow. It's still dream team against rookies.
Yeah. I think you noticed, I noticed, Alexander Mikuras had pointed out that the composition of the delegations meant that Ukraine wasn't really going to be discussed in detail in terms of the military aspects.
Absolutely not. Can you imagine? They had Silvanov, Minister of Finance. He was there to discuss serious business, economic, geo-economic. Silvanov is immensely qualified. Okay, Belousov. Okay, but Hegseth was not in the room.
Yeah, I guess he showed up.
He showed up,
but he wasn't in the room.
Belousov was, even if he was not in the little room, 3+3, he was in the room outside. He could be called at any minute. Perhaps he was called for some expert. Like Dmitriev, the same thing. Dmitriev was in the 5x5. And Dmitriev, the Americans trust him. And he has very good connections in Washington and in New York. Well, but when you look at the composition of the delegation, wow, come on. The Russian delegation was something immensely impressive. So what explains that? That famous sentence by Ushakov after the Putin-Witkoff meeting, if you remember well, when he said, the Americans presented a proposal that we consider acceptable, his own words. So implied in this acceptable is, okay, this is not only about Ukraine, it's much, much bigger. It involves possibly a reset of our strategic relations. And that may have moved Putin to suggest Alaska, take the risk of going to Alaska. And the way he was received on the tarmac by Trump was visibly, moved that, oh, you finally made it.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, I'm beginning to think that the Witkoff visit, a week ago Thursday to Moscow, it was not so much they had already arranged and planned to have this summit. I don't think that they just decided, after the Thursday meeting, and then he goes back to Washington, and then they say, oh yeah, let's have the summit next Friday. Because if you notice the preparations that were made at Elmendorf at the Air Force Base,
yes,
they already had the media center set up.
The whole thing, yes.
So this tells me that this thing had actually been in the works for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And Witkoff going to Moscow was actually the final planning for it.
Of course, they did not receive the proposal via Witkoff on that particular day.
Yeah.
They obviously received it through the appropriate channels before. So they had time to analyze it, yes.
And selecting the 15th of August, I don't think that was coincidental at all, because it coincided with the 80th anniversary of the victory over Japan.
Over Japan, you bet.
And in fact, I had written about that like 3 or 4 days ago, and then Putin brought that up directly in his remarks about the importance of the relationship. So that told me, I don't know if you're familiar with Ryan Dawson and his work, but Ryan...
Yes, of course. We used to do shows eons ago.
Okay, so Ryan put out something on August 6th in which he provided the comments of General Dwight David Eisenhower, General Douglas MacArthur, the Army Air Corps General Hap Arnold, and even General Curtis LeMay, who was not exactly known as a peaceman.
Dr. Strangelove himself, right?
Yeah. All of them commented that the atomic bomb shouldn't have been used. They would have won the war anyway, especially because of Russia's intervention in Japan.
Of course.
And so when those guys are saying it never should have been used, you realize it never should have been used. But the point of this is that Truman's fear of then Soviet influence it was intended more as an intimidation factor for the Soviets. But the fact that here is Putin trying to say, hey, look, we had, your boys and our boys died side by side fighting for the
side by side. Exactly. Including here. Exactly.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
So that was, the selection. I don't know if it was Putin. It had to be the Russians who said, let's do it on the 15th and let's do it in Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know that it was proposed by the Russians. Yeah. Maybe not necessarily by Putin himself. He was listening to people, of course, before the proposal.
Yeah. And then what do you make? Because one thing I focused on before the summit was Trump said and did a number of offensive things that should have offended the Russians, from deploying the nuclear bombs back into Europe, to Lakenheath and into 5 other bases in Europe. The comments of General Donahue about invading Kaliningrad. The bombast about Trump, I'm deploying nuclear submarines, which they're already deployed. I mean, it was, a ridiculous thing to say. None of that seemed to ruffle or rile the Russians. And now with retrospect, I look back and I say, because they knew all along that this was Trump just doing misdirection.
Misdirection. Absolutely.
You think that's what was going on?
It is, Larry, absolutely. And they had already set their own goal in terms of, okay, if there's going to be a summit, it's going to be a summit our way. And there's going to be a summit where we have the finally have, like Trump himself. So you're here, finally, from the point of view of the Russians. Yes, finally, we have a face-to-face and explain to you in 20 minutes What is Ukraine all about?
Yeah.
Which you still don't know. It apparently, Larry, this is one quote that we should pay attention to. Let me just find it. Sorry, just a second.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
This is a Trump quote. He published it on Truth Social. Perhaps this particular sentence explains the whole thing from the Trump point of view. Okay, it was determined by all, very important, that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war, and not a mere ceasefire agreement, which oftentimes do not hold up. So in one sentence, he buries NATO, the EU, and Kiev.
Yeah.
We never heard this from Trump before, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
And this happens to be exactly the Russian position. If you see all those spectacular tweets by Medvedev on X, basically this is what Medvedev is saying. This is what Lavrov has been saying for over a year. And this is what Putin has been saying since June last year.
Yeah, actually, I heard today, I think it was Alexander Mercouris or one of the Duran boys, or Alex Christoforou, said that the Europeans had actually come out now today and basically endorsed that view of a peace agreement as opposed to insisting on a ceasefire.
It's part of a toxic Medusa post. Yes, I read the post a few hours ago. It's amazing. This is something that the European Commission never put it this way. Of course, first of all, if you have an IQ over room temperature, to quote our great friend Martyanov,
yeah,
by now you have noticed that your strategic defeat as Europeans is total and irreversible.
Yeah.
So you might as well try to readjust your position. They'll never admit it, but at least readjust the position.
Sure.
Considering that they are menu and they are not table. And finally, they are starting to get the picture. Okay, we have to go along with it. Of course, then if you go to Merz, you go to Macron, they continue to say the same bullshit, including today. But now this comes from the European Commission, which is much more powerful than any nation-state government. So this means there's an enormous difference now. We haven't heard on the same terms from NATO yet, but you can bet that from today to Monday, sorry, our show is on Monday, right?
Yeah, so this will be up on Monday.
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking, for everybody to know, we're talking on Saturday afternoon.
So Tutti Frutti or Rudy is going to adjust his position as well.
Yeah.
There's no question. And he's much more relevant than the European Commission. So, wow, the immediate impact of the summit is already in front of us. Another thing entirely, as you know very well, how to sell a peace agreement in caps, as was written by Trump in his post, to the US ruling classes, to the deep state, to the neocons, to the Atlanticist gang, to the Europeans, to NATO, EU, and to Kiev.
Mm-hmm.
It's practically impossible, right?
Yeah.
Which brings us to, there must be a plan B already in the works from Trump's point of view and from Russia's point of view. And maybe we could have a very, very quick conclusion about it. Plan B for Trump is, I did everything that I could. You, Europeans, you want to continue the war against Kiev? Very simple. It's your problem now. I have nothing to do with this. The United States has nothing to do with it. Of course, there is a condition. You have to buy all our weapons, pay in euros from now on, non-stop. Then it's your war, no problem. Trump knows that NATO and the EU, both, they cannot at the same time financially and militarily continue the war. Even one of these vectors is already enormous problematic. Can you imagine carrying both at the same time? They can't.
Right.
Are they going to go to major international banks and get money that they don't have, paying absurd interest rates to continue a war that they know they intimately know it's already lost? And with which weapons? There are not enough weapons, even inside the U.S., as you know very well, Larry.
Oh, yeah. The 7 years. Hey, you've got a 7-year. You're on the 7-year wait list.
Exactly. So this should be the plan B. And plan B for Moscow is very, very simple. We continue to do what we're doing.
Yeah. They don't have to stop until
it's decided in the battlefield. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is being decided right now in the battlefield. We'll continue like that. And the possibility of this front line crumbling in the next 3-4 months is going up every day.
Yeah, very, very. Yeah, I think quicker than that. Candidly, I'm going to talk to General Brzezinski next Friday.
Okay,
get his take.
Yeah, and he has fresh information from the front lines.
Yeah. He's. I remember when the last time I interviewed him, I asked him, because it seems to me that there are 9 basic bridges, railroad bridges over the Dnieper River. And you take those down, you cut off the logistics, basically will force
the
Ukrainian army to starve. And I said, why hasn't Russia done that? And he laughed and said, I've been asking that myself, which was hilarious. But then, as we got into it, it appears that at least in the initial stages, first year, 2 years of the war, Russia did, if they feared if they did that, they would have left the bulk of the Ukrainian army west of the Dnieper. And your goal is to demilitarize. That doesn't demilitarize. That just makes it more difficult for you to demilitarize. But now it appears that they've reached that stage where they can start disrupting those lines of communication, as they're called, taking down bridges, blowing up railroad lines, and shutting down their ability to resupply the forces on the front.
Because now the Ukrainian army is largely demilitarized.
Yeah.
Considering the Russian way of doing war, attritional war, this takes time.
Yeah, the last numbers I saw were that the Ukrainians are down to about 300,000 troops on the front lines, and Russia's got 650,000.
Plus, anybody that they can call another 100,000 to 200,000 like this if they need it.
Yeah. They've got probably at least another 600,000 to 700,000 reserves. Already in the pipeline. What accounts for the European just hatred of Russia? Let me tell you what I've seen in the United States. I went back using several AI search engines, and I'd asked the question: show me the press coverage. Was it favorable or unfavorable for 1999 for Vladimir Putin and Russia? And so I got it. It started in 1999 and moved forward. It shifted from positive, generally favorable, to negative in 2003. Now, can you imagine what happened in 2003 that shifted public opinion?
The war in Iraq.
Because Russia opposed it. Russia of a sudden.
And the 3 Europeans.
Yeah.
Led by France at the time. It was Gerhard Schroeder in Germany and Chirac in France. I remember very well because I was doing still a little bit back and forth. And not only Chirac, but the French population, 90% was against the war.
Yeah. Well, but that's when
it was. And after Munich, Larry, after Munich in 2007, then the whole European elite, old money, old aristocracy, and les arrivistes, the new ones, the nouveau riche, you name it. And then in bloc. And then Russophobia, And after Maidan, of course, and these past 10 years, now to the point of Russophobia is installed. It is a total iron wall all across Western Europe. We're not even talking about the Chihuahuas in the Baltics because those are psychotic, small psychotic elements. But here in France, in Germany, and in the UK especially, a little less in Italy. Italian population, they are very, very shrewd politically. And they are much more, I would say, left anarchist and contrarians, naturally contrarians, But in this trio, UK, France, and Germany, wow. And this is going to could last two generations. My German friends tell me it will last at least another 2 generations, which is it's too long.
Well, you and I are old enough. We recall I don't know if we can call them the bad old days or the good old days of the Cold War.
Yeah.
I mean, where the Soviet Union and the United States were actually arming guerrilla groups, fighting each other through proxies. The Russian pilots were flying in Vietnamese jets against U.S. pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And with all of that, we never had this level of hatred of Russia or the Soviets.
Never. And there was always dialogue, Larry. You remember that? And civilized dialogue between Washington and Moscow.
Correct. And that's why I still keep trying to wrap my mind. There's nothing we can objectively point to that would justify, the kind of attitude. And if you listen, I don't know, did you have a chance to watch any of the U.S. media coverage of the event yesterday?
Yes, I did, Larry, because before I switched completely to Telegram and X, I did a little tour of CNN and BBC and French media. Mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Absolutely mind-boggling. and then I didn't want to destroy the TV. It's still a good TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote last night on my blog that I'd be yelling at the TV. My wife thought I was having a stroke. Are you okay? I go, I'm okay. Yeah, get out.
No, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And for some reason, I couldn't get Fox News in the bouquet that we have here. I don't know why. Because in the previous one, we had Fox News. So I had to go to Sky News instead, which is much worse.
It's Scott. Listen, Fox was awful. And they had on Jack Keane, and they had on a couple of generals that were morons, in addition to Jack Keane, a couple of other generals. Yeah. What they were, you kept saying repeatedly, Putin is evil.
Exactly.
You can't trust Putin. He breaks every agreement. Putin is a war criminal. And it was this litany of, you think that they were describing Marquis de Sade.
At least he was a good writer.
Yeah. And then on top of it, the assumptions that were baked in, which is, Russia's doing terrible on the front. They're militarily, they're suffering, and their economy is a wreck. Mm-hmm. It's an absolute disaster. Just a little more pressure and they're going to break. They really, genuinely believe this.
They believe it. And that's the problem, Larry, because this was the information that the CIA was feeding Trump.
Yes.
So it's no wonder that they had, for instance, Silvanov as part of the Minister of Finance, as part of the delegation. Silvanov could explain in 5 minutes the state of the Russian economy to Trump.
Well, and Belousov as well, too. I mean, that Belousov, apart from being defense minister, he was really more of an economic manager before he took that job.
He is essentially an economist. Exactly. Yeah. So it was great that they took it very serious. They took the pain. So, it's back to school, guys. We're going to dare to school Trump and his inner circle. Obviously, Marco Rubio, I can imagine the brain of Marco Rubio yesterday with so much information that he was unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
To start with, right? But, they did their homework. And this paragraph that I quoted from Trump's Truth Social post, it was decided by all. Wow. And he could never articulate this position before because he didn't have command of the facts. It's not that he has command of the facts now. At least he now knows some of the key facts. Once again, will he be able to sell it? Practically impossible.
Well, and I think,
Okay, my question to you, Larry.
Yeah.
He's not going to sell it. Okay, assume he cannot sell it to anybody. What happens next from a Trumpian point of view?
well, I think one of the reasons they did it now is, the Lindsey Grahams, they're out of town. Americans are almost as bad as Europeans when it's August. Boy, it's vacation time. Get the hell out. Abandon Washington. Yeah, partly because it's just insufferable to live in that city. I mean, it's very hot and humid. There's going to be a lot of pushback on Trump. I mean, the frustration from these analysts who are really, they fully expected that Trump was going to come out and announce that he had coerced the Russians into a ceasefire.
Mm-hmm.
They really believed that was going to be the outcome because their assumptions were Russia is weak, Putin is desperate. And when I kept telling people, I said, the Russians are not weak and Putin certainly is not desperate. He's made it very clear what his position is. They're not going to back off from that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, they can swap out Zaporizhia and Kherson. And I said, no more so than Trump could offer to give Alaska back to Russia. Can't do it. He could say it, but it ain't going to happen. The too many legal hoops to jump through. So there is going to be, I think, a lot of pressure on Trump, pushback, and I think we'll see more of the verbal. He will be taking more verbal jabs at Russia in public, but communicating to them and say, look, I've got to do this in order to keep these people at bay while we work behind the scenes.
This was certainly discussed at the table.
Yeah.
Because now both sides, they have, the Russians know how politics work in Washington. Trump doesn't know how politics work in Moscow. He probably got a little bit of schooling about that as well. Like Putin could have said, look, I have my own domestic critics as well, who basically are telling me that I should have cut off the head of the snake years ago. And this war is taking too long. It's an almost war, which is a definition that you still hear in Moscow if you're talking to businessmen, people in the financial market, etc. And they wanted some of these silos of well-informed people. They would rather have a hardcore character in charge like Bortnikov, the head of the FSB, compared to Putin. So this actually exists in Moscow. It's a very touchy subject, especially for us foreigners. But sometimes people discuss this with us. I'm sure they discussed with you when you were in Moscow.
Yeah.
So he has, in turn, domestic critics that are very, very powerful. Some of the oligarchs who are not totally under control, for instance, and they're pressing, look, finish this war now because we want to go back to business. And this brings us the business angle, which is something that is good for the American oligarchy and for the Russian oligarchy. They want to continue to do business among themselves.
Right.
And that includes, for instance, that famous project in the Sakhalin Islands. ExxonMobil was part of the project. They had to leave because of the sanctions. And they lost over $4 billion to exit the Russian market. ExxonMobil, they want to come back, especially because the other partners in that gigantic gas project, an Indian firm and a Japanese firm, they stayed. They didn't leave. Only ExxonMobil left. So obviously there's some rumble in the jungle, in the backyard, pressuring Trump. Look, find a solution. We want to go back to Russia. And they have everything. Oil, gas, natural wells, minerals, rare earths, you name it. And Trump knows that.
Yeah, and maybe they had a chance to explain to Trump, you can impose sanctions on us, you can impose tariffs on us, it doesn't hurt us.
It doesn't work. Exactly.
So let us explain to you why. Because I guarantee you, I remember in 2022 when I first started writing about that part of the economy, because I looked up and did the research on, Russia's role relative to natural resources. And I realized I never knew. I didn't understand how vast, how wealthy. I mean, literally, Russia's the number one country in the world in terms of natural resources.
In terms of natural resource, it's mind-boggling.
So, but nobody on the U.S. side, when they decided to impose those sanctions, took the time to sit down and calculate the fact that, if we hurt Russia, try to hurt Russia on this, they'll just turn inward because they don't need anything from the U.S. or from China or anybody else. They literally are the only country in the world that can be self-sufficient. It helps that they occupy 11 different time zones, And they didn't understand that. So maybe that was one of the themes that, Trump and team got to hear yesterday and at least get educated on.
Yes. And there's an extra problem about all that, because Trump would be, in theory, I wouldn't say even in theory, but practically, he wants to invest in business projects in the Arctic and perhaps even in the Russian Far East. But these two areas, from a Russian point of view, are national security areas. Mm-hmm. And in these two areas, there is a federally organized drive, similar to what the Chinese started doing in the late 1990s, at the end of the millennium. In the Chinese case, was go west, means conquering and developing Tibet and Xinjiang. In the Russian cases, go east, and north, go north and go east, developing the Arctic, the Far East, and of course, the Northern Sea route, which is, the Chinese call it Arctic Silk Road. It's quite, I would say it's a stretch, but of cosmic proportions, to see the Russians allowing the Americans to be part of the development of the Arctic Silk Road. This is a Russian matter, and this is a national security matter for Russia, because it involves developing a channel of communication and a connectivity corridor, which is going to compete with the Suez Canal. And anybody in Washington who did your kind of research, Larry, they can do the math about that.
I mean, it's not like this is some highly classified, top secret, special compartment. It's right.
Yeah.
It's out there.
It's out there. Well, in 2 weeks, this is going to be quite something. 2 weeks is the Vladivostok Economic Forum. This morning, I was organizing my logistics over there. Starts on September 3, the exact day when Putin and Xi will be talking to each other face to face in Beijing during the parade commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War from the Chinese point of view. Right. And from the Chinese terminology includes the war against Nazism and fascism in China, which means, in this case, the Japanese. 3 days later, this is going to be on the 3rd. 2 days later, guess what's going to happen? The plenary session of the Vladivostok Forum will be Vladimir Putin in person, when we're going to hear from him for the first time live, probably with a big audience, the post-Alaska situation. Mm-hmm. So 2 weeks from now, 2 to 3 weeks from now, is going to be one week where everything happens. It could be decades or centuries.
Right. Well,
it's coming. It's coming. Right across the street. Yeah.
I'm calculating that the earliest that Putin and Trump could meet again would be like September 15th, somewhere after that, 1st of October.
Yes.
Simply because of going to China and then Vladivostok.
Did you see the rumors that he wants it to be next Friday, Trump?
No.
Yeah, there was a rumor. I read this an hour ago or so. I don't know if this is true or not. That he would like a trilateral next Friday. Not going to happen.
Yeah, the trilateral is not going to happen. Because I imagine when the whole issue of, well, you got to negotiate with the Ukrainians, and Putin said, well, hey.
Negotiate with who?
Yeah, well, he said, Donnie, baby, we've had 3 meetings with them so far. And we have given them a position paper. We're still waiting for the reaction.
We're still waiting for the reaction.
So anything you can do to, encourage them to get back to us so we can move that dialogue along. But we're talking. It's just, they don't want to cooperate.
Not to mention that Putin, as a legalistic as he is not going to negotiate with an illegitimate head of government, or even if it was somebody from the Rada. The Rada is also illegitimate by now. There were no elections.
Yeah.
So everything is illegitimate in Kiev.
Yeah. So I've watched also Zelensky's comments today, reporting on his phone call with Trump. So he hasn't budged at all.
He has no, and he won't. He can't. We all know why. Now, if he does, Khmer Rouge style, a shot in the back of the neck.
Yeah.
Those people that hold him hostage in Kiev, Pravi Sector, Azov Battalion, the whole gang. He can't. And he's a two-beat actor playing a role. He's now deep inside his role, like he was David Carradine on Kill Bill.
Yeah.
But he's the victim in Kill Bill.
Yeah. Well, with Kill Vladimir, I mean, that'll be the sequel here.
I have a question for you, Larry. Zaluzhny, the MI6 guy, is being prepared, groomed, is practically ready, including a black photo shoot on Vogue magazine to be the next leader. If that happens, we go back to square one, right?
Right. Well, it'd be because he's more, as I understand it, he's more closely aligned with Azov and the neo-Nazi movement than Zelensky is.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's going to be more of a problem for Russia. Now, on the other hand, he was, at least he was schooled in Russia's military academies, or
absolutely,
so he came up through the Russian system, and he's got to have some friends or at least acquaintances on the other side.
On the other side, he respects Gerasimov. He already said on the record many times he considers Gerasimov absolutely first-class general. But he's an MI6 asset now.
Yeah.
So this means what? Destabilization of the Black Sea, you name it. Let's do something about Crimea. All those Brit obsessions. Huh?
Yeah, and that's, this mucking around in the Caucasus. But when I went back and looked at the size of the population, they're like the equivalent of Latvia, Lithuania. I mean, they're just, Georgia, Armenia, are they're pissant little countries.
Yeah.
And they would get easily crushed if they, they're being played by the West to antagonize Russia. But, Russia so far has been ignoring, dealing with them like you would deal with an annoying fly buzzing around your head.
Ooh. Because, among other reasons, because the Armenian diaspora in Russia is powerful, business people, totally integrated in the Russian economy. Even in terms of internal Armenian politics, they are also powerful. They have their cronies, etc., and they don't want to upset the status quo, like the Georgians. Same thing. So one possibility for Ukraine could be a Georgian scenario. In fact, it's not so far-fetched. But first, you need to get rid of this Pravi Sector, Azov, dementia, Nazi-fascist gang in Kiev. But how?
Well, I do know there right now, the Department of Defense Criminal Investigation Division has opened a criminal case involving let's call it the theft of $48 billion that were siphoned off out of USAID. I don't know the precise figure, but it's probably in excess of $200-300 million that was paid to 23 members of the U.S. Congress, both the Senate and the House.
Wow!
So so this is big. And Zelensky is implicated in it. So to the extent that investigation is pursued, this is going to be another source of pressure on him. So dealing with the military setbacks and then this legal, a very serious legal threat over his head.
Well, but this takes care of Zelensky and perhaps a few people behind him, but it doesn't take care of the whole setup
Right.
here.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And this includes powerful oligarchs, Corbell, the Kolomoisky style people who are behind all that. It doesn't take care of all of them. Well, consider that Ukraine basically is a bunch of corrupt oligarchs. It's not a country. No?
Right. Well, I mean, to what extent do you think the Russians are calculating, look, we'll put our offer out there on the table, but we really don't think that the Ukrainians or Europeans will accept it. So once it's rejected, they will have at least made every good faith effort to work out a peaceful solution, which is why I think that after Witkoff's visit last week, that Putin was on the phone with China and with India saying, here's exactly what we discussed. Here's the next step, the next play. This is the way this is moving forward. And, by keeping them in the loop, Russia buys itself continued support for
it has continued support because Russia yesterday was representing BRICS.
Yeah.
It's immensely important. The small victory, I would say, for a little while, no extra sanctions on BRICS members. This is something that Russia also accomplished yesterday. We don't know how long this is going to last. But they were also representing, especially India, China, and Brazil. And don't forget that these past few days, it's a tsunami of phone calls of all of them. Everybody's calling everybody else, nonstop. And what Lula said, essentially, this was one of Lula's best moments lately. He said, we are coordinating a concerted BRICS response to the tariff war. This is enormous.
Yeah.
They're paying a lot of attention. They have already working groups, you name it. It's very, very serious. And the fact that finally the BRICS are acting in a concerted manner, that's also very good on such an important dossier. This has to do with how successful the summit was in Brazil in the end. Typical Brazilian style. Nah? Victory at the last minute. They score a goal at the 48th minute in the second half. Yeah. This is what the Brazilians did in Rio in the end. And everybody in the end was, wow. In the end, it worked. The final declaration, the round table, the BRICS Business Council day, which was incredible. So obviously they feel energized. And immediately afterwards, they were slapped with the 50% tariffs. And similar to India. And India, Modi happened to be on a state visit to Brazil right after the BRICS summit. So this Lula and Modi got even closer together. And on Monday, Larry, guess who's going to visit India for the first time in years?
Oh, yeah. Is it Wang Yi?
Wang Yi will be there on Monday. This is enormous, enormous. Especially when you compare. For instance, there were, I think we commented on about that. There were a lot of top academics, Chinese academics in Rio during BRICS. And all of them were saying, look, trust between India and China, it's a disaster. The whole thing in a matter of 3 weeks turned upside down.
Yeah. Hey, I've been saying tongue in cheek, but was this actually Donald Trump's secret plan to win the Nobel Peace Prize by bringing India and China together?
Hey. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, you look at it and go, because, you and I talked last year after Kazan.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, boy, the momentum that they've picked up now is probably going to fade, collapse, run off the rails with Brazil sitting in the seat.
That was what we were expecting. Yeah.
And India was sort of seen as not terribly sort of lukewarm.
Yeah.
And then Donald Trump, thanks to his tariff policy, in a period of like 2 weeks, solidified BRICS in a way that they've never been unified or energized.
And once again, due to misinformation.
Yeah.
If you had anybody minimally competent in the Trump 2.0 circle, you don't have to be at the Jeffrey Sachs level, but somebody minimally competent about multilateral organizations around the world to explain to him what BRICS is about, how does it work, what do they really want. It's not that they are not essentially anti-West, that they want to work also with the West, but they want a more equitable and more well-organized system of international relations for emerging nations and for the poorer nations as well.
Well, there's
he was being fed bullshit all the time.
Yeah.
And the only thing that registered in his brain was de-dollarization.
Well, and a complete lack of understanding. And I had a conversation yesterday with a dear friend of mine. He's a solid he's a certified financial analyst, great guy for managing portfolios. Mm-hmm. But he then said to me, he said, well, Trump's plan is, that either Russia toes the line or Trump is going to unleash, he's going to destroy them because the United States has so much more power in the oil and gas market. And I told him, I said, dude, I said, you couldn't be more wrong. That's the problem. The West believes this, but they don't understand the depth and resiliency of the Russian economy and now the unity with China and Russia. That is, there's no precedent in history for this kind of relationship, what they have now.
Mm-hmm. Well, but they all of these Trump 2.0 people, they believe in the reverse Nixon effect. No? Forget it. Not only the historical conditions are completely different. If you've been following Russia, China since, let's say, the start of the new Silk Roads was years ago, was in 2013. Xi Jinping came to power in 2012. His first big act was the new Silk Roads 2013. And then they start talking openly about Russia-China strategic partnership. And then by the end of the past decade, the Russian-China strategic partnership was at the top.
Right.
Somebody in Washington should have studied that. Obviously, there are some people at the State Department who are highly capable. I'm sure they know about that, but they are completely marginalized.
Well, and it's not just in government; it's in academia. I remember I had sort of a back and forth with one of these, he's fairly well-known economist. I think he was out of Harvard or Yale, and he was trying to tell me in July of 2022 that Russia's economy was just a month away from collapse. and I just said, you're crazy. I mean, and when you try to supply them with facts, they can't even accept the facts.
Cannot accept the facts. Not to mention that they don't travel. They don't know Russia. They don't know China. They don't know India. Iran. They never been to Iran.
Yeah.
So obviously they don't know anything about the top BRICS.
Yeah.
Brazil is different, but Brazil is close to the US, and the corporate American presence in Brazil is immense. So they know about Brazil, and they know the weak points of Brazil, especially the weak points of the Lula government and the people around Lula. And they are at war against the Lula government.
Hey, have you ever followed there's a YouTube channel called Inside China Business with Kevin Walmsley?
I follow some other ones, but most of them are Chinese. I prefer to follow the Chinese by Chinese, not by foreign. Yeah.
The relevance of his channel is not so much about China, but it's about U.S. data. And in his most recent show that's relevant to what we're talking about is the complete collapse of foreign tourism into the United States, including...
And it's happening already, right?
Brazilians aren't coming into Florida. It's just across, the Chinese aren't coming, South Koreans aren't, and it's literally costing now hundreds of billions of dollars.
Exactly. Vegas is empty, né? Vegas is empty, apparently.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, this Trump is going to be facing some real economic headwinds as a consequence, not of anything that Russia and China have done, but as a consequence of what he's done.
Or what he's done.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to blow up on him. What did you make of Putin's speech at the end of the summit?
Carefully, he was reading from his notes. So this was carefully scripted, very accommodating. Of course, paying tribute to Trump, without divulging an inch of what they discussed.
Yeah.
Very polite, but absolutely no details whatsoever. So in this sense, it was a masterclass of not saying anything, politely. And Trump, obviously, immediately afterwards, I think he had 4 minutes or so, blah, 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 basically talking about his own team. And once again, no details. So I think we could assume that they had an understanding after that initial pack of hyenas hurling questions against both of them. And very important, because the American side of the room was not only anti-Putin, but they were also anti-Trump.
Yeah.
And the Russian side was probably looking at that. What the hell is this? They're not used to this. In Russia, as you see it, everybody's polite, everything is well organized. So probably both teams said, look, are we going to open for questions after both addresses? And they did, no, it's a waste of time and it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
And that explains it.
Yeah.
That's the only rational explanation for no questions whatsoever.
Yeah, I published a string of tweets from a variety of New York Times reporters last night.
Okay.
Oh man, they were cranky.
Of course, and they were pissed to death. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Well, the Russians, for the Russians, it's not a problem because they listen to Putin every week, and the people who are in the Kremlin pool, they have access to him practically every day. They wanted to hear something from Trump directly, but the Americans and the Americans never hear from Vladimir Putin live.
Yeah.
Well, so I can imagine how they were completely out of their minds with that.
Well, that's what I think is one of will be one of the unexpected outcomes if Trump goes to Moscow, because when the pool of U.S. reporters goes to Moscow, all of a sudden, once you're confronted with that reality, very difficult to continue to spread the lies that this is some authoritarian dictatorship and no freedom, and they got a potato shortage, and I mean crazy stuff that's being said. I've had a back and forth. I've stopped talking to the guy, but this one, he's got a fairly well-known blog or financial letter that he sends out. And he was saying, "Oh, you were just being fooled by the Russians when you went there. Moscow is just one big Potemkin village." I'm going, you're saying that Vladimir Putin can persuade 16 million people to put on an act just for me?
Exactly.
Are you
in the most
crazy?
Modern and efficient city in Europe?
Yeah.
Every European that goes to Moscow is like, wow, we don't have this in Italy. We don't have this in France. No, you don't. You don't have this here in Paris. You don't have this in Rome. You don't have this in London. London now is a hellhole.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, but I'm sure the campaign with 60 million Muscovites was absolutely, we have to fool this idiot foreigner here.
Well, we'll see if the three-way meeting, I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening either.
Well, and Putin's been pretty clear with, hey, once the workers, Medinsky and company, what they're working on, once they got something of substance to bring to me, then I can go sit down. And I think Putin might even at that point, okay, I'll talk to Zelensky, but there's nothing that he can sign, no action he can take that's going to bring an end to this.
It won't. And since he outlined in detail the Russian conditions, which was in June last year, Putin.
Right.
That's it. It's all there. It's like the the letters of the law. It's all there. And that's it or nothing, literally. There are no concessions to make because these conditions were at the start of the SMO, which Putin, until the last minute, he didn't want the SMO. His hand was forced.
Yeah.
Now, in retrospect, we can say that with 100% certainty.
Yeah.
But when the intelligence arrives the reports at his desk saying, look, there's going to be a blitzkrieg against Donbass, there are 3 dates. One of them is next week. They have nuclear lab experiments all over Ukraine. And at the Munich Security Conference, they say they're going to have nuclear bomb again. When you have this trifecta, what do?
Right.
That's it.
Well, and one of the fascinating things, and maybe we will close up with this, is Russia in the first few days took over the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant.
Yes.
So they've got control of this plant and have maintained control for the last 3.5 years. And yet all around them, they're surrounded by Ukrainians.
Surrounded by Ukrainians, yeah.
And Ukraine has not dared to try to retake that plant. Why do you think that is?
First of all, they know the risks. Second, even if they recover it, the Russians will go back and take it back again, which is what happened with the areas that they lost or they were forced to lose in the first year of the SMO, which was bad. Okay, yeah. It was badly planned. We all know that by now. And of course, they didn't have a serious plan to take over Zaporizhia plant. For instance, when the whole Kursk thing, which was to take over the Kursk power plant, they didn't have a proper plan to get there. Okay, when we get to the Kursk power plant, what do? No, there was nothing. So in terms of planning, this was still under Zaluzhny, wasn't it? Kursk was still under Zaluzhny. So even Zaluzhny...
actually, Kursk, that was Sursky. That was Sursky.
Kursk was Sursky. You're right. Kursk was Sursky already, exactly. So this proves that he has always been a lousy planner, which is what people at the Ministry of Defense in Russia say all the time. For us, it's not a problem because we're dealing with this guy.
Well, he had plus he had help from the Brits and the Americans.
A lot of help from NATO. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, as Martianov always says, this guy cannot plan a meeting. Can you imagine a war?
Right.
There you go.
Well, this I think we all anticipated correctly that Putin was not going to surrender or give an inch of
I think all of us independents, let's put it this way, we knew that from the start. Perhaps we're not expecting that there will be some I wouldn't say tangible, but positives coming. Yeah.
Well, at least that they'd be as well received by Trump.
Exactly.
Because the body language of him with...
body language, from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
From the tarmac already, you could see, whoa, something has changed.
Yeah, I mean, the smiles were genuine.
Exactly.
The laughs were genuine. And
I would say the fabulous spectacle of having Putin speaking English live.
Yes.
For everybody in the US, oh no, he has a double, a triple, he has a something. No, he understands English perfectly. This is something we see in those forums in Russia. Even before the question, he already takes off the listening piece and he starts to answer.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak often. He speaks when it's only absolutely necessary, which was this case, and to be pleasant.
Do you recall any other time where you've seen him do that in public?
No, I never saw him speak in English. Well, in Russia, absolutely forget it. But in those meetings with Obama, some of what was captured by cameras tells us that he perfectly understands what Obama was saying, and he starts answering Obama directly without even looking at the translator.
Uh-huh.
And yesterday they had the best translator in Russia. I forgot his name now, working for him. There's a fascinating glimpse that was, I think was Russia 1 or the Kremlin pool. They got the image. 10 seconds or so, backstage, Trump and Putin talking to each other, and the translator is on the sideline. He's not even, you don't see his lips. He's not even.
Yeah.
We're talking in English, Putin and Trump in the backstage.
Yeah, and they were smiling, and they were
smiling.
Then they had
there was
a warm handshake.
They shook hands warmly,
And then Trump turned and shook hands with the translators. Did you see that?
And then he shook hands with the translator. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which he probably did a sterling job. But this guy is considered the best translator in Russia.
Yeah.
And you've seen translators in Russia. They are absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, they are spectacular.
They're spectacular. Really,
I learned to appreciate what they do. When back in 1984, I was living in Argentina, and so my in-laws, my father-in-law, I took him to a movie. Normally in Buenos Aires, they would bring you would have the movie would be in English with Spanish subtitles.
With Spanish subtitles, yes.
So I made the mistake of going to see Novecento. I don't know if you ever seen Novecento.
Man, I interviewed Bertolucci.
Okay,
he was one of the heroes ever.
So here I take my father-in-law to see this Bernardo Bertolucci movie, and it's in Italian with Spanish subtitles. No English.
No English.
So all of a sudden, I've got to translate the whole damn movie into English for my father-in-law. So I'm sitting there, oh my God. Now, the good news came when Robert De Niro and Gerard Depardieu were in bed with a hooker. And I turned to my father-in-law, I said, do I need to translate this part? He goes, no, I got it.
Una putana.
So, but out of that, I developed, whenever I hear these the Russians doing the translation of, me into English, or the Russian, into or from English to Russian, etc.
Yes.
Yeah, I just, I have great appreciation for them and their skill.
And in those talk shows, when we are foreign guests, they do the back and forth.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Incredible. They don't even pause. They translate us as we speak.
Yeah.
And they translate into English as our hosts are speaking. It's immensely impressive.
Yeah.
Well, compared to the UN, where I've been to a few UN sessions, and usually it's disaster.
Yeah. Well, they have to get it prepared in advance and written from it.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Hey, have you done dinner yet, or are you going out for a late dinner?
No, we had a dinner before, because now we're watching Guy Ritchie series on aristocratic mafiosi in England. It's absolutely extraordinary. And it's very funny as well.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you, my friend, for taking the time.
Thank you, Larry. Enormous pleasure.
All righty. I'm going to stop the recording. I hope you enjoyed that. Pepe is a grand friend, and we love to sit down and sort of try to make sense out of this crazy world. I thank you for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and share it with a friend or family. I'm Larry Johnson, and this has been CounterCurrents. Thanks for watching.